I'm good. Derek.
All right. Okay. It's a step forward.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Then and Now podcast. I'm your co-host, C. Diesel. To the left of me, I have Mr. Lelouch V. To the right of me, I have King of the Comics, Professor E. Ethan Murphy. How y'all doing today, brothers?
I'm pretty good. I am pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you, buddy?
I'm pretty good too, man. I was trying not to laugh too hard because that kerfuffle getting into reminded me of the classic days of Then and Now when we would try over and over again to try to get things up and running, but it would take a minute. So I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good. How you doing, Dev?
Shaboing boing.
I'm doing great.
That's right. And kill the wire. Go ahead.
I'm leaving the show. I don't.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, credits.
Stop.
Jesus Christ.
Off to a screeching halt.
Charlie,
Guys, I'm happy.
on board. Why do we do this? Why do take it away, please?
Guys, we have a lot of stuff to discuss today. I'm really excited to get into it, so let's go ahead and start. Big thing on the docket today we're discussing is the Dahmer, not documentary, I guess biopic, for lack of a better term, because it's more of a reenactment than a historical telling. Bio-series works.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, hold on, somebody's computer audio, like I can hear myself through this shit. But first and foremost with the show, I want to say I was split watching this near the end of it. The beginning of it, I was like, oh, this is dope. It's great. And I'm not saying it's not great the whole way through. It's a great, well-produced show all the way through. It seems real dope. But when I came to realize, I'm like, damn, this is actually real stuff that happened to real people and real families. And in my head, I'm like, how do these families feel when something like this is being brought up multiple times and they're just not allowed to forget it and like move on from it? Then I'm pretty sure I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the families were paid any money from Netflix for bringing this back up and redoing this again. I'm just like, man, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a family who had something like that happen to me, like to my cousin or uncle, whatever else, and it's constantly being brought up because it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
and that's what's crazy.
I don't know. I do think so. Unlike other instances where victims or families of the victims are just, for pretty much bereft and don't get any kind of compensation for their struggles. Not that there is any compensation that's enough, but in this case, the idea that the money that was made from the book sales and the actual auction, I believe that actually was true, that they actually did try to get the family some actual money. And also because as we get into it more, Jesse Jackson was involved and shined a big light on it too. So it's these victims did suffer, or the families, of course, all of them suffered a lot. But I think there was some compensation in some capacity. It's not enough by any means, but there was some. But I don't know if they got anything from Netflix or any of these other movies that are being made about them.
Yeah, because this isn't the first reenactment of the events that have transpired with this thing. There's been a lot of them. Yeah. So I'm just like, damn, these families just cannot forget this. But that's one thing I just wanted to bring up before we really got into the meat and potatoes of the show, just kind of giving credence to the families that went through these unfortunate events and wish them nothing but the best, and rest in peace to the people that went through the tragedies. But to get into the quality of the show, I will say this was an amazingly well-produced show. I think Evan Peters filmed in a great performance to me. Like, I've watched him a lot of stuff from American Horror Story to the X-Men stuff. I didn't think he had this in his bag like that. Well, granted, I kind of saw it with American Horror Story, but to this extent, was a little wild to me. What did y'all think?
Well, I mean, starting with the quality of the show was high. I mean, his acting, he was the main person, like, over him to him fully adult and in prison, like all those were portrayed very, very, very well, as well as, I mean, like I love the representation from the rest of the cast. You got to see a lot of black faces and them saying a lot of powerful things and doing things that were important to the story. So I thoroughly appreciated that. My grievance with this comes from I don't fully understand what this was made for. Not in the sense that I think it was bad. I just think like, okay, when I watch the show, like, okay, well, when the show is made in general, it's like, okay, is this to entertain? Is this to inform? Is this to shine a light on something? Like, what is the goal of that? And I don't actually know what that was for this series. Like, even by the end of it, I like, are you trying to shine a light on the families again? Are you trying to bring attention to the fact that this happened to minority? Like, what was the goal of this series? That is my only question towards it. But when it comes to the quality of it, the execution of it, it was definitely high level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just the first thing to do, I guess, would be to just answer Otis's question. How I feel about it. The reason a show like this particular one exists, we're going to get into some spoilers, although this is more or less a true story, so these are already out there. But there's a part at the end where Glenda Cleveland is saying is, can we put up a memorial for these victims, do something to honor them so we don't forget them? And obviously Milwaukee's trying to put this whole incident behind them because it's such a horrific thing. And I feel like in a big way, partially this is a memorial. At the very end of the show, you see they take the time to show you the actual pictures of all the victims, and the last few episodes focus more on the victims and their families. I feel like it's in some way is a memorial to them. Is to try to honor them and try to pay their respects to them, but also it's largely to I'm sure you guys know how true crime is a really big popular genre. For some reason, people love it to pieces. And I once asked the doctor why it is that people love that so much. And she told me that she can't speak for everybody, but for herself, it's almost cautionary tales. It's like fables, or when you're a kid, you're told not to put your hand on the stove because something bad will happen. When you hear about true crime or see these types of things, it kind of makes you more aware of the things that are out there, so you don't make the same mistakes in a sense. I can guarantee you, younger people who may watch this series, the thing that Jeffrey Dahmer did a lot was drugging people, and by slipping, basically give them a super Mickey in their drinks, they would drink it and be knocked out and they'd be done for. I guarantee you, anyone who watches this, goes off to college or goes to a bar, will never take a drink from some random stranger. They will always get themselves. So it's I think there are some purposes to these types of things. It's basically to show you that there are dangers out there, and to be cautious of them, and then not to forget them, not to let these things happen again, not to let history repeat itself, to always be on your guard. And last but not least, that there are other types of monsters out there too, not just monsters like Dahmer, but monsters like two fucking cops. We get more into that later on in the show, but those two dudes, that's oof.
Yeah, like, wow. So
that I think that's why these things exist, especially in a time like now. It's so we don't forget the victims. It's so we don't let something like this happen again, and to shine a light on the incompetence and real ugliness of other types of monsters, or all monsters.
All right.
I love the show too. I thought it was great. Yeah, that was well produced and everything. Right.
I looked at the show. Again, to me, it was literally just a big true crime podcast episode. In a sense, for me, to kind of play off of Ethan's point, when you look at, I think the top 10 podcasts in the world, like 3 or 4 of those are true crime podcasts.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, like those are the biggest like things in the world. And again, to your other point, like when it comes to human history and how we pass down information, it's through folk tales. And you have I'm not going to say, you have the stories of like the Bible that are their own stories that give you credence to future events that are meant to give you knowledge going forward, or like half the tales in like Arabian Nights and things of that nature. Like they're meant to be a cautionary tale to people going forward, because at that point in time we didn't have the ability to write things down and nobody was really literate, so the only option we had to pass on information was through the transferring of stories from one to another. But yeah, the series to me was more of so for entertainment, for people that loved horror entertainment. And I know it's more so like Netflix pushed that really hard because this dropped, and then they started pushing the John Wayne Gacy documentary that they have on there really hard at the same time. Like as soon as I finished this, that one popped right up next, which I was tempted to look into that a little bit more just from seeing the snippet of him in the actual Dahmer series. You get, I think, like a 5-minute snippet. Well, not 5 minutes, more like 15 to 20-minute snippet in one of the later episodes of John Wayne Gacy, and playing into that whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I really enjoyed about this series too. They not only showed the methodology or just like the thought process of Dahmer, but they really got kind of philosophical in regards to people just being bad people and people being redeemable and things of that nature, and people just being human all around. That was I really liked that aspect of it. The dialogue felt like a realistic dialogue. I like to give another shout out to Niecy Nash. I'm a big Niecy Nash fan. If you guys watch Claws, I love their Claws. But she, like, her portrayals, her monologues that she got was great. Like I loved her performance in it. I thought like Otis said, I like all the, not only just black characters, but characters in general had really great written dialogue and great performances all around.
Yeah. I mean, they were the larger cast actually was people of color by far. Niecy Nash, my first impression of Niecy Nash was actually from Reno 911, which is a kind of more largely improv comedy type of weird off the walls comedy with cops doing stuff. And she was hilarious in that for years. And to see her do this gear, which is completely different, and she nailed it there.
It's range, man.
It's range because she's legit. She's legit. So one thing I want to bring up real quick is that, like you said, this is much more almost like a visual podcast that they show over these 10 episodes of Dahmer and whatnot. But it's not really just Dahmer. A lot of it is actually showing the story from the victims and from his parents and the families of the victims. And that's something they don't really do nearly as much in biopics, especially because biopics you only have like 2 hours typically in a movie. But with a series, you can do a lot more and do it a lot better. And they really did a really good job with it, I think. One thing Ryan Murphy, I saw an interview, but he said, as he was talking to Evan Peters and as they were doing this, he said, you have to understand, this is not a vanity project. It's not about glorifying anything Dahmer did or glorifying him at all. This is about actually showing one more brutal nature of what it's like, of what an actual, how horrific this actually is. This shouldn't be seen as fetishized or enjoyed in that sense. And they really did. They doubled down on that. And I think one thing too is there's a little bit of a backlash when they had that Ted Bundy movie on Netflix, which came out, I think it was last year, year before last. Starring Zac Efron. Yeah. And it's like that one, it didn't show any of the actual crimes he committed, not even one of them. And also you have Zac Efron running around with his shirt off, showing off his abs. It's like you're clearly trying to, and I get partially that, Ted Bundy was a very charismatic, charming guy, which I got away with so many things. But at the same time, they're more glorifying that killer than they are showcasing any of the horrific things about him, which is they kind of missed the point. This did not shy away from that at all. It 100% got into that. So I appreciate that.
I was gonna say that too, as far as them like hypersexualizing Ted Bundy. That's the one thing I didn't like about the Bundy one, is that they made him seem as though he was desirable, which I guess it makes kind of sense, because in order for him to commit those crimes, he had to be to like seduce women and to do those horrible things. But when I'm personally looking at, like, for me, whenever I watch a serial killer thing or anything, even if it's a horror and it's a made up murderer or things of that nature, I need to see the methodology of this person and why this person does what they do, and that's the entertainment value I get, if any. Is the kill in horror movies? Yeah, the kills are there because then I feel a bit better about those because those are fake. But in something like this, I need to see, like, and that's another thing I appreciate. They didn't get too graphic with the murders he committed. Like, most of the murders were implied and kind of heard off screen than on screen. Yeah. So it didn't really like glorify those kills at all.
No, there's no glory, but it was still horrifying in a way, because partially what it did a lot of times is our girl Niecy Nash, it showed it from her point of view. And you'd see her looking at the vent, and you hear the screams, and you hear her kind of like cringing away from it. Like that's what it'd be like to be around an actual murderer as these things were happening. Or you'd be in the apartment and they talk about the smells over and over again. Or you just see a family. They would have one of my favorite episodes is episode 6, where it's half the episode is just with Tony, his life before he meets Dahmer, essentially. And then once he actually, you think there may be a second for a moment where he actually does walk away from him, but he walks back in there. And as he goes back in there, we don't see him get hit or attacked at all, but the door slowly closes, showing that his life is ending. And it cuts to his mom, before talking about where is my son and that thing. It's like that still is just as impactful as it would have been, maybe even more so than actually seeing him get hit in the head with a hammer or whatnot. So if they found a way to make it just as horrific and impactful as a horror film, just in a different way.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Some like that's one thing that this series does excellent. Setting an atmosphere and aesthetic. Like every episode felt unsettling in some way, shape, or form, and it wasn't just about the grotesqueness of exactly what was going on. It was the reactions of the family. It was the conversations between Dahmer and his family. Like everything just felt off kilter intentionally, and it was really well executed. That's something that I wish that you would see more in horror films nowadays. Like instead of going for just strictly the shock value, just set the atmosphere and make people really feel unsafe. And they executed that brilliantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Dev. No, I've talked before.
No, I will say a lot. I think that's a new direction of horror nowadays. When you look at directors like Ari Aster, I'd say Jordan Peele to an extent. A lot more directors they're trying to set tones and like atmosphere through movies now. There's not as much like shock value and like when you get into like early 2000s, it was like Saw and a lot of torture porn and stuff of that nature. Nowadays, you have like certain cool kills that are like people remember those in movies, but it's more so atmospheric horror now. I think that's the new wave going forward. That's what I've been seeing a lot more from a lot more horror movies that I'm seeing that are really well done.
Yeah, first like the Blumhouses and A24s, like they're not like what's a Pearl that's out there, and
Pearl.
even Barbarian, like those they're not. I mean, they do have some gore or whatnot, but it's not about that at all. It's like they don't mind being slow burns and actually really making you, like you said, Dev, really get into the atmosphere as far as getting in your head. As far as why this is more horrifying than anything else. Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is kind of going off topic. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, all I was gonna say was, I ironically enough, I watched the movie. What's it called? Smile. I watched Smile yesterday with a friend of mine at the theater, and that movie it has some really good acting. It even has A Train from from what's it called?
Boys.
The Boys.
Yeah.
The Boys is in there, and it's actually decent enough movie, but it does have some shock value in it on purpose and some surprise jumps and everything. And the biggest gory moments of that film, I was thinking about it, it's like those didn't unsettle me as much as the series as Dahmer did, because it's like I was unsettled trying to go to sleep at night because of Dahmer, not because of the things that I saw, actual physical things I saw in Smile. That being said, there was a part, I'll be honest, for the first time in I don't know how many years, and when I watched Smile, where something happened on screen because they're doing so many fake outs and so many jump cuts and all kind of crap, something happened and it made me actually jump back in my seat. And looking enough, my friend was kind enough not to laugh at my face. He did laugh later on. I heard him, but he didn't laugh at my face. So there.
We need to check that one out. I feel like it's like the second or third movie like that, Lily with that same name.
Smile.
But yeah, what's I about to say? Do you think the reason we were so unsettled with this series is because we know they were actually true events versus something with Smile is more supernatural thing that's obviously not reality. Maybe to some people, well, to me, it's supernatural stuff to an extent, but to something that brazen, I don't think it is real. But with Dahmer, we know this is an actual person that did actual things that has a possibility of happening again.
100%. There's no reality in which that's not a factor. No pun. Yeah, of course. The idea that this is a real person and these are real victims and these are real things that happen. Like, I mean, that's the idea that someone that is living in your building, that's living right next door to you, could be doing these horrific things under the nose of the police who are dumbasses of all kinds, there's no one that can stop them. That should unsettle you. That you could go to a club, trying to have a good time, doing your thing, dancing your ass off in the 90s, and someone can just come up on you and just like, oof. So there's no reality in which that's not horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think knowing the fact that like this isn't some supernatural thing, this isn't some phenomenon. This is an actual person going around and committing these atrocities. That absolutely has a part of it, but the other part is just like, just the skill from the actor who played him. I never remember his name. What's his name?
Evan Peters.
Yeah. His skill, because man, like his ability to portray an awkward person to that degree was excellent. Along with that, just like the music, the tenseness built up within the scenes, like it's a culmination of the talent of the workers there and the actual situation. Like it's a lightning in the bottle almost.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one thing I love about modern horror. I feel like I'm seeing it a lot more. I think I first saw it in a lot of Jordan Peele stuff. They're kind of treating music in horror movies like the Pavlov stuff, where you associate that song or for this one a song and a sound effect, like that little almost like a bell, a chime in a sense. Whenever you hear that, it's like, oh, shit's about to get real. So whenever you hear it, it can be a fake out without even having a jump scare, because you just hear that and you're already on edge. You're preparing for something crazy to happen, and it may or may not happen. And I think that's genius. I don't know if that's a thing that's done on purpose. Well, it has to be done on purpose because it's too intricately placed.
Well,
and I was like, damn, that's Pavlov's theory. It's crazy.
The conditioning. Well, they did that also with the vent. They set up because if you guys remember in the first episode, one of the very first things you see is the vent from Niecy Nash's Glenda Cleveland's apartment, and you hear the stuff, and that's kind of setting the tone. And then throughout the series, they keep coming back to that vent up until I think it is even in the last episode, maybe before the last episode, where she goes home again after she's had to leave, and she looks at that vent and she still hears, and she still has PTSD from that vent. The vent has actually, she's now, I don't know what it was like for her in real life when I know we get into that later on, but that they did it like you said, Deb. They were conditioning the audience to essentially fear the unknown of what's going on the other side of that room, the vent, what's going on in Jeffrey Dahmer's room, in his world, in his head.
For people, just to give a quick synopsis of what the Pavlov's theory is, for people that may not know, I feel like I have to. There's a scientist, I can't remember his first name, but I know his last name was Pavlov. He discovered through research that he would ring a bell and then feed dogs to make the dogs have an association with food to that bell. And he realized that he can condition mammals to have an association with a sound, a thing, whatever it is. So whenever they see that thing, they get an association, whether that be happiness, hunger, whatever it else is, to that specific thing. That's where that derives from.
But also take it a step further with Pavlov's dog and conditioning. It got to the point where he would just ring the bell and the dog's mouths would salivate automatically. So it wasn't just a thing as far as them consciously being aware of it. Their bodies would basically react to it on a level, a subconscious level too. And that's something that happens to us. Like, for example, when humans, it may have something that maybe something pleasant too. When you were a kid, your mom may have made your birthday cake, and so that a certain smell in the oven reminds you of that. Now as a grown person, reminds you of makes you happy. Just smelling that certain thing makes you happy. You may not even know why. It's because when you were a kid, you smelled that from years ago. So.
I'm really that's with horror, man. I really hope we get a lot more directors that play on that. I think the best parts in horror, when you get to like movies, have been when these directors have kind of played on the psyche of human beings to make them. Again, liminal space is another thing recently that I was made aware of, that I did some research and saw how many horror movies and bigger movies that did it well, how they utilize that using Pavlov's theory. I'm like, man, there's probably like infinite amounts of psychology that you can infuse in horror or in cinema period, just to make things better, just kind of manipulate the human mind as it's watching them, they make you feel what the director wants you to feel in that moment.
For sure.
And it's dope.
That's one thing too. Like George Miller, the guy who directed the Mad Max films, and recently he did 3,000 Years of Wanting. He is a doctor. He actually had an MD and everything, and he was able, because he understands the human body so well, he essentially knew because of that, he knew kind of inherently what we are more afraid of happening to our bodies. Essentially, like the worst things, or the worst case scenarios with our bodies, what can actually happen to it, and he put those things in the Mad Max films. Which is why the idea of the guy at the end of the movie being chained up and having to use a saw to cut his leg off, he knew that'd be the most horrific scenario, essentially. So it's the idea of all that's to say is that psychology plays a big factor in really getting into what's more horrific, I think. I think that's why you can have true crime podcasts where you're just hearing stories about things that have happened, can be more horrific than actually seeing a movie of gore porn and running from your face.
A question I have for you guys is kind of a mini controversy that happened within the series itself. A lot of individuals within the LGBTQ community had an issue with Netflix dubbing this series an LGBTQ movie. Like they put it underneath that category for a brief stint. And then people were kind of having issues with that. Yeah. Some people were kind of playing it off. I know a lot of Black people had issue with it, and then they were like, hey, what if they put this underneath as a Black film? Would you have an issue with that? What is your guys' take on that in particular? We don't have to stay on it too long, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Otis.
I absolutely don't think that this should classify because I mean, like yes, there was I mean the protagonist is technically gay, but this is more about the desecration
That's
of
not
those people than the celebration of them. Like
right. That's that's how, usually if you're gonna put something. That's the weirdest shit. So I agree. Like I wouldn't put a movie about like the struggle of a slave getting beaten down over and over and over again and say, here, let's put this in for Black History Month and we're celebrating African.
I mean, they kind of already do that, don't they? Like
they
those
do
are black.
Do that. I'm like, I don't know, that's not the most encouraging thing. So the idea of a man who predominantly killed gay men, I don't know if that's the right message to say. No, that seems wild. I would put it in either not a true-ish crime or biopic kind of a thing, or even for Halloween. It's Halloween-ish around that time. Play up the idea of it being, it's literally called Dahmer Monster, so like why not play up the idea that's actually more of a horror, scary type of thing? That's
right. And that's the argument I've seen is more so people are like, whoa, during Black slave movies, that was Black pain, and we put that underneath Black films, but it's just a whole thing. I don't want to stay on the topic too long, but I wanted to touch it just because it was relevant to the conversation. I felt like
I feel like that's the equivalent of playing Schindler's List on Hanukkah. Like, don't do that.
It's like, that's the perfect metaphor right there. It's like, no, this is not the time for that. What are you doing? But stop. No. Yeah.
Emotional damage.
Yeah.
Why did we StreamYard, please take this picture away. I am praying to the StreamYard gods. If you are listening in on this, take this feature away.
It's too late.
The best part was we both saw his eyes turn around because he's waiting to push that button. He's waiting to play it for like a half hour straight. I'll give you credit for that for waiting so long.
But yeah, the series is great. Evan Peters is great. Everybody did amazingly.
I don't know. There was his dad, Richard Jenkins, the actor Oscar winner. Richard Jenkins, his father. Think about this though. It's something we haven't talked about.
His performance was crazy.
His performance is fantastic. But imagine what it'd be like. Can you imagine? None of us here are parents. At least, well, Dev might be. He's been busy with some ladies. But
hell no, big fella.
That's fair enough. I mean, ain't here blow up your spot. Ain't here blow up your spot. I don't even know that even means Taco Bell for some reason. So many cans of worms are open now because of Dev and that damn machine. But the point is like, could you imagine
to make the Taco Bell tacos?
Oh, too soon. I used to eat there a lot. But what I was going to say before Otis made me sad in the face was that could you imagine if you were a parent and your child did this kind of stuff? Like, what could you? It was in the show explored that. The first thing he was trying to do was like he went through the whole dabda as far as the levels of acceptance, as far as depression, anger, bargaining, denial, all those things. He went through all those levels, and then finally at the end, he's like, I accepted that this is just I played my role. We all played our role, and this is who you are, and I love you for it, essentially. But it's the idea of how do you deal with this? How do you accept the idea that your child, your flesh and blood, your half your DNA created this and did this?
That to me was one of the most realistic portrayals that I would have thought of when I look at somebody with a situation like that, to where that's your baby, that's your child, like they came from you, you're gonna love them no matter what. And I was very much so a parent, like throughout all that's his life of him like fucking up over and over again. He's like, look, we're gonna figure out something for you to do because you're not just gonna be a bum. And even down to the murders, he's just like, why did you do it? All right, I'm going to help you out to get to this point. You're going to live life in prison for the rest of your life. But I'm trying to, like, he tried to make things as comfortable and great for his son, no matter what and how bad it got, even to the end where he was trying to cope with it and he like blamed himself for it. So it would be like, I just see a parent as, for me, seeing how my mom interacted with me and whenever I messed up, or just seeing other parents, that just seemed realistic to me. Like, no matter how bad your child messes up, you're going to try to make the best of the situation for your child, no matter where they put themselves at. And it just seemed realistic to me. Because in my head, I'm just like, bro, disown that motherfucker. Like, he murdered people. But realistically looking at it, I don't know if that can ever be done. Yeah.
See, like, this made me realize how I'm not built to be a parent. Because, like, me in this particular situation, officer, he is here. Put him in a different state that has the execution, please. Like, left. He got to go. He got to go immediately. This nigga gotta go. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know if I, this
I-
again. This is coming from people that don't have children, so I can't speak
Right.
for. I can't say that for sure. Because you
But you
raising
do have-
something for it's like 18 to 22 years and having
Right.
that emotional bond with something. That's like if you were married to Felicia for like 60 years and she did some wild shit like that, and now you're just
she
like,
gotta go too. If she
Okay.
do something too
Okay.
crazy, no, bro.
Of course, so
You are
that's
eating
yeah.
yeah.
hearts.
It's
You are
obviously
literally eating people's hearts.
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah,
if
it's
your
crazy.
if your girlfriend is doing that, so it's a different scenario, or your wife
Yeah.
is a different scenario. You can divorce and leave. But yeah, I get that. But this is your blood. This is something you created. This is something you raised. It's not as simple. You can be very angry. His dad went through all those. He actually was angry and everything else, and we saw him angry multiple times for multiple. I mean, there was there was an event where his son got caught molesting a child, basically, in the
Bruh, that
prison for
was
a year. So and he still had to deal with that. He got kicked out of
He'd have
school.
been disowned after that.
Yes, so his dad had to put up with a lot of stuff, and I'll be honest, our parents, all of us, have had to put up with a lot of our shit. Obviously, hasn't been to this extent. At least I hope not. But they've had to put up with our shit. Things that we may have not thought much about. They've put up with a bunch of our shit. As a parent, it's going to happen. Now, granted, Dahmer is a whole other world of shit, but I'm sure there are other parents out there that would try to do their best to still love their child no matter what. I'm sure.
It's a norm. Look at like in the black community specifically, a lot of families have that one uncle or that one auntie that you keep your kids away from because you know what the fuck they on.
Yeah.
You just watch them heavily. Like
You
you still keep them in the family because they're part of the family, but you treat them accordingly. Like you don't keep them around your kids by themselves and things of that nature. You tell your kids don't be around uncle such and such by themselves. It's a normal like it seemed outrageous, but it's something that just human beings naturally do or tend to do because you consider that person family. And I guess I don't know if it's more of American culture or just human nature. You treat your family like before anything else. Usually, either it's blood related or people you consider to be your family.
No, I get it. I get it. And that even in the series, it showed that the families of the victims were somewhat sympathetic to the parents of Dahmer. Like, yeah, we get it. It's wild and crazy and everything. It's like it's understandable. And the thing is too, it's like it's a whole because you do want to find a source. Like how does this kind of a monster come into existence? Where did all this happen? And you may say, well, maybe because his dad was helping him do the with taxidermy or working on animals back in the day when he was a young kid, or maybe it's because the dad said, well, I had these fantasies when I was younger, fantasies of possibly killing somebody or doing weird things. It's like maybe he got some kind of brain thing from me, or maybe because the mom had some kind of drugs when she was younger. Who knows what it was? But it's like it doesn't work that way. You can't always try to find an exact source. Sometimes these things happen, and there isn't a clear-cut answer. I've told it on this podcast multiple times. I've told it to you, Otis, and Charlie several times. One of my favorite lines from Hannibal is where he says, "Nothing happened to me. I happened," meaning there isn't an origin story for it. I'm evil because I'm evil. The end. And that's kind of how things are sometimes. Things are just the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about the series. They didn't make an excuse for him. It was just like
They didn't make an excuse for it. Now that that's one that I will give him credit for. Dahmer, this is true too. Dahmer did not try to say I was insane. He ultimately confessed all these things. It's like, yeah, it is what it is. I am what I am. I don't blame my parents for this. It's like, this is me.
Even to the point, even in that scene where he's about like getting murdered, he's like, the guy's trying to like make him like beg for his life. He's just like, bro, I did that. He's like, did you beat him? He's like, no, I drugged him so they didn't feel anything. He's like, well, you gonna feel this? He's like, all right, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I wanted to die anyway. Go ahead. I was like, damn, bro. Like, that was some shit.
Yeah, like I said, I had to. We'll get this real quick when we ask you all this question, real quick, not to get too far off topic. What is y'all's palate cleanser? Like if y'all watch a scary movie or what have you, something unsettling late at night, right before you go to bed, what do you watch to kind of like wash your brain of that stuff so you can go to sleep easier?
I don't, because it doesn't affect me.
Well, I guess if you're Otis, your brain is already
that nigga different. He is built different.
He
He is built different.
He's Gotham. He's basically Bruce Wayne's mind, just darkness.
Like I can't tell you how many times this week I literally just fell asleep watching Dahmer. Like it was just on, and I went to sleep, woke up the next day, and shit, had to watch more of it because we had to watch it for the show.
But here I'll ask you this real quick, then I'll begin to Charlie's. What about The Exorcist? Less sex. I know that one messed you up when you were a pup. If you watched it now or watched when you were younger, if you had to watch something afterwards, try to clean your brain, what would it be? That's
a good question. Probably Castlevania. That's usually like
Pennsylvania. Okay.
yeah,
More horror shit. That's crazy.
I mean, it's kind of I get it because it's horror, yes, but there are people fighting it, overcoming it. So it's not just the horror winning. Yeah, so I get that. Plus, it's awesome. Okay, all right, Charlie, what is your palate cleanser?
Yeah, this nigga different, but for me, younger when I first started getting into horror, I fucking watched the most childlike shit possible. So like hella cartoons. I think it was like when I first started when I was like 8, it'd be like Barney or some shit like that or SpongeBob. And then in my mid-teens, I just watched like the Spider-Man animated series, Batman, stuff like that. Now I kind of just watch whatever I'm into. Either be like I'll watch some basketball or like I'll watch a YouTube video or something like that. Or I just play around. I just do something that's not that to get my mind off of that. Like I'm processing it still, but I don't need to be actively processing it when I go to sleep because I'm very much so a person of like I dream about whatever's on my mind a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I had like 1 or 2 nightmares watching this shit, like because it was just on my mind when I went to sleep. It wasn't nothing too crazy. But yeah, I very much know myself. I'm like, I'm trying to have some peaceful sleep. I do not need to be having nightmares all this week.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I watch a lot of horror and I normally don't. That usually doesn't happen to me. But again, I think it was just because this was so based in realism.
So real.
And
so real.
Especially it was so relevant to like the Black community in general of how like you feel like you're helpless in a sense because they were begging for help or Niecy Nash's character was asking for so much help and they just were not giving it. So I was like, damn, that shit hit me on multiple levels.
That's not level of horror there. Yeah, I agree. And this is something that we talked about before, Dev, was our palate cleansers. Mine is for the past year or plus has been, I guess for a while it's always been anime or cartoons, but recently it's been My Hero Academia. Y'all know how much I love that show, but also just seeing Deku like bright and colorful. Like, because the thing is, for those who don't know, the show that's Naruto. But my hero is about this main character who is basically the smallest guy in the room in every room that for every reason just believes enough in himself to tear his body apart trying to do the right thing. Believing in someone like that makes me feel like better and happier. So kind of like I can feel I can get over everything. Now this one other thing too. I know Otis well enough to know that him and I both had the same reaction to Sinister a few years back when they came out. That's one that messed me up also. That's one that had all kinds of atmosphere as far as one thing that movies do a lot, this Dev with horror movies, they love to do the jump scares and that nonsense with the shriek and everything. Sinister doesn't do that like hardly at all. A lot of the time it's just very quiet. You're watching actually silent films and something horrible happens on that and it still makes you like cringe. So that movie, because of that, when I went home that night and I was trying to sleep by myself, it's like I didn't trust the silence. Silence scared me because of that movie. So it's that's like we've been saying here, getting the atmosphere going, getting your psyche can really just F you up the most.
Funny enough, with me, like supernatural, paranormal horror doesn't really fuck with me like that, and it's more so because I feel like I believe it's wholeheartedly real to some extent. And I know, like, I'm gonna stay the fuck away from graveyards like that at a certain time. I'm staying the fuck out of abandoned houses where murders happen. I know all the general rules to stay away from to avoid that kind of shit happening to me. Outside of some wild, like, unless it's something like The Ring, where like I just cannot avoid it because it's like a tape or some shit like that. It's chasing you. Even then, I'm not even. But yeah, those don't fuck me up as much as I know they're real to an extent. I know how to stay away from them. It's more so like the serial killer ones that fuck with me because it's like, all right, I could walk past somebody on the street and I could fit somebody's MO and they want to kill me now.
Right on. No, I feel you. It's horror. Welcome to Halloween month. It's October, but what is it, October 2nd? It's like, this is officially, we officially entered Halloween horror month. So before we get to the next big section, we're going to play our favorite game. And Dev, you have it in here, right? You have the opening.
Before we do that, you don't want to rate this?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, we can definitely rate it.
Yeah, you jumping the gun, my boy. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I'm gonna get this. This one probably be one of my first 10 out of 10s. Like I didn't see anything wrong with the show. At least as a product itself, it was perfect to me. Like it did what it meant to do. It did things creatively. It did things in a well done way, and the acting was phenomenal. Sound design, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I'd give it a solid 9. Or the only point I take off, because like you said, everything was great, is just the way they kept jumping. They jumped around through time so much that at times it was hard to keep up. It's like, and I also wasn't sure why they would do that. So because of that, because they made it a little confusing at times. It's a little hard to keep up with in the beginning, especially. So I had to dock it at one point, but that's it. Everything else extremely top notch. Extremely top notch.
Yeah, I agree. A 9. Same reason, just because like I don't know why you would have like so many parallel time periods that you're jumping between. Like you shouldn't have 2 different timestamps where we're living in the same apartment. Like you could have been a little bit more clear with that, but beyond that, I mean, excellently done show.
Yeah.
Uh,
no complaints. I have no
Yeah,
complaints.
I would be interested to see how that, like the reasoning for like just seeing the director kind of discuss why he chose that decision. Maybe just because my guess would be that because he was focusing on victims a lot, that he had to go to different. I don't know because it's kind of weird.
It seemed almost like a missed opportunity at one point too, where they had it where earlier, like at the first episode, they essentially the police catch Dahmer and they sit him down and they're asking him questions about his victims and that kind of stuff. That would have been more or less a pretty good framework for us to then go do the whole flashbacks to his whole life, essentially, as he's telling a story from the police station. But they didn't really do that either. So it was a little disorienting. But again, I'm nitpicking more or less. So
yeah, only other reason I can think of is maybe because we already know how things transpire chronologically. So maybe doing that would be kind of boring to an extent for some people. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good show. Can't wait to see. Can't wait. Oh, I can't wait to see more of it. Let me move on.
It was like there is no more. It is done.
Spoiler alert: he's dead. Jeffrey Dahmer is extremely dead in the face.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the reason I was trying to dovetail into the game is because the game is tied into the show. So do you have a?
Yeah, it's in there. I'll play real quick.
Yeah, let you play it.
So at the top.
Yes. Maybe some of this, or maybe some of that. It's either or, baby. All right. This is either or, and we're.
That was nasty. I'm sorry. That's nasty as fuck. I'm sorry.
He just said, "Ugh." This is either or, and this is either or. And today we're doing it for we're in relation to Dahmer, the monster series on Netflix. And I'm going to ask my co-host here some questions, and they are going to say it's not quite either or; it's actually fact or fiction. I will read, and these are things that happened in the show, and I will ask them whether or not those things actually were true in real life or if they were just made up in the show. You dig?
Okay.
Right. So, first, who wants to go first? Who's up? Who's ready to go first?
I'll go first.
Mr. Tim Drake himself. All right. So, number 1, Dahmer got caught when a half-naked victim escaped his apartment and ran down the cops in the streets.
True.
You have to say fact or fiction. I'm sorry.
Oh, fact or fiction? Fact.
Yes. You have a bell in your soundboard there.
I absolutely do.
I asked. I don't try myself. Like my own that. A long month. Yes, that was fact. That was actually how it happened. Again, we like to think that these serial killers are such crafty masterminds. No, they're dumbasses oftentimes in real life. And Dahmer just let a half-naked man
so sloppy, sloppy. Like
I'm grateful, but it's like this. Also, this is the second one that did this that we know of. So idiot. Now, Mr. C. Diesel himself.
Yes, sir.
Number 2. Dahmer wore yellow contacts to emulate villains from movies.
I thought that was false. I thought that was something they added in. He said Palpatine specifically was like Star Wars.
Right. He did say that. It's fact. It is fact. He did in fact do this. Yes, he did.
Well, that's creepy as hell.
Yeah. Again, it is. It is creepy as hell. As a matter of fact, the victim who escaped at the beginning told the story about how he pretty much the way they portray in the show, how he put him in. He's on the stand saying the exact same thing as far as he wore these contacts doing this kind of crazy shit. So it actually did happen. He actually wore them trying to emulate villains because he relates so well.
Proceeding as I have foreseen.
I thought you would just play the thing, the clip. I thought you'd do that.
No, I don't have that one.
You don't have that one? Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. I got all happy for no reason. y'all get those creepy.
Damn, you better get murdered over there, Otis.
Yeah, is it?
She's bringing in groceries.
Here's the thing. Dr. Bell, Felicia moved out a month ago. There is no Felicia. He's there by himself. Do something, y'all.
If that was true, that would be extremely scary.
We should all be afraid.
It's the dreads hunting him from underneath his bed in the glass case. Trying to reunite.
Kind of cute, I guess. Kind of cute.
Throwback joke. I forgot that. Oh god.
All right. Speaking of Otis, Mr. East, aka Mr. Drake. Question number 3. Dahmer posed in yearbook photos that he he didn't belong in. Groups he didn't belong in.
I feel like that one's fiction.
That one's fiction. Yeah, they made it up. Yeah. So, fact.
Oh,
that happened. This has been portrayed in multiple movies. He actually did do this, and they actually have the yearbooks where you see a blacked out image in multiple. He's actually in multiple groups he wasn't supposed to be part of because he didn't join any groups. He was known for being a drunk kind of in class. People didn't really like him. He was weird. But he just wanted to kind of fit in. So he would just jump in at random pictures in the yearbook. And you see a whole bunch of them blacked out. So that's actually fact. Weird as shit. What fact?
This guy stinks!
Yes. Good. Yeah. Well done. Well played. Better than Taco Bell. Okay. Moving on to number 4. How many Taco Bells? I'm kidding. Number 4, Dev. Dahmer killed Dean Vaughn. Now, Dean Vaughn was the guy that they show that moves into the apartment. We don't actually. It's like later on this season. We don't actually see Dahmer kill him, but the show kind of postulates the idea that he did. Do you believe that he actually did, in fact, kill this mystery?
I'm gonna say no because I feel like most of the murders that he committed, they showed him like either preparing the act or in the act of. So maybe he got away or he died by other circumstances or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I see your math. I see what you did there. Correct. Don't pay that bill. Don't pay that bell.
Bong.
That's even. That's play the bell. There's no winning. There's no victory here. Only losers.
Oh my god, I've had so much fun.
But yes, that is fiction. What actually happened to the poor guy was he was found strangled to death in his apartment. He lived in the same building as Dahmer. That's a horrible place. That place is cursed. But he lived in the same building as Dahmer, a few floors above him. He was found strangled to death in his apartment, which didn't fit Dahmer's MO, and there was no evidence tying him to Dahmer. So the show couldn't essentially show him actually killing him. They didn't know for certain.
Poor black neighborhood crime, all that, probably a robbery or some shit.
Yeah. Okay. Otis East, aka Lelouch V. Dahmer was in fact baptized the same day as John Wayne Gacy's execution.
The fact?
You think it's a fact?
That's my guess.
You're a man of God. You believe in baptismals and that kind of stuff. Okay. Fact! It was fact. It was in fact fact. And it supposedly was like within an hour. They believe actually literally was within the same hour that it happened. Dahmer did in fact get baptized on the same day as John Wayne Gacy's execution. What that means, I don't know.
Was the eclipse happening too? Is that a thing, or they didn't make that up for dramatic effect?
So, ironically enough, that's my bonus question. Did this actually happen on the day of a solar eclipse?
I'm gonna say no, bro. That'd be too wild for that to all happen at the same time.
Yeah, that is crazy, right? Yeah. So for that one though, you're wrong as hell because it's a fact. And this one actually, there's documentation of that too. The actual solar eclipse happened on that day. It wasn't necessarily as big and grand as they may have seen, like full-blown Castlevania style as they showed in the show, but it definitely did happen on that day, which is why I don't know what all this means. It's like evil on top of evil, but it's creepiness. So
Beelzebub was out that day, boy. Jesus.
Literally.
Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know how to take that stuff, but yes, that did in fact happen. There's documentation of all that stuff. Okay, so moving on to question number 6 for Mr. Lelouch V, aka Mr. Drake.
Real quick, for anybody that wants to discuss any of the things we've went over during the show, or just wants to come up and kind of challenge or just answer a question, I'm going to throw the link to the StreamYard we're in now into the top of the chat. So if anybody wants to come up for a second, we'll bring you up, let you answer a question or two, and then we'll get you going. But continue. My bad.
No, my bad. Yeah, good call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 6 for Mr. Drake. You didn't escape. I still got you right here. All right. Dahmer wore his glasses throughout the trial. At trial, as far as at the end.
I don't think this. No, I think it was something fiction for that one. Fiction. That's
okay. Fiction. And fiction. Yes, he did not do that. The show, I'm not entirely sure why they had him wearing glasses. That they found a show that's very detail oriented had him wearing glasses, maybe because they wanted to keep him looking like, I don't know, Evan Peters' character. But Dahmer in real life did not, because he specifically, there's an interview where he mentions how he didn't want to wear glasses because he didn't want to be able to see his actual. He felt so much shame that he didn't actually want to be able to see the victims' families in person, essentially. So yes, that is a fact fiction. All right. Moving on here. The question now, this is for Mr. Otis East, who is a big fan of Niecy Nash herself. Glenda Cleveland lived next door to Dahmer.
I'm gonna say no. Maybe this is the floor below or above.
Correct. She did not. Yeah. Now, it was not the floor below or above. It was the building next door.
Oh, wow.
Actually, the building next door. Yes. The thing about it was Glenda Cleveland did notice weird things, like as far as people that ran out of the building. Because in the show, they do show multiple people running out of the building, screaming and stuff like that. And she noticed this kind of stuff happening, and she did call the cops multiple times. And then she noticed Jeffrey in these situations, so she mentioned him and everything like that in their records of her calling. But actually, the show, that character that Niecy Nash plays is more or less an amalgam of Glenda Cleveland and Pamela Bass. The actual neighbor that Jeffrey Dahmer had was Pamela Bass, and Glenda Cleveland was more proactive doing these things.
All right, this took place during like the 80s, right?
Well, I guess maybe
it started like the 70s.
It was 1991 when he was caught. So they were neighbors.
So his murders were taking place during the 80s, right?
70s and 80s, yeah.
70s, 80s. Yeah, and even up through the 90s, though, because he wasn't caught till 91. And in 91, though, when he was caught, he was getting ready to commit another murder then. So he was still doing it into the...
That's, I guess, my thought process. I feel like maybe this is not to give the police officers any excuse whatsoever, but like it's during the crack epidemic during the 80s, so you're probably seeing people running around doing crazy shit. So they're probably people just, not even just like the police, just regular people aren't probably giving it as much attention because crackheads are probably very rampant during those times.
Fair. Yeah, and that's... Yeah, crack. Jesus Christ, crack. Yeah, but yeah, that's fair. There are people that they may not have been as much of an exception to the rule as we like to hope they would have been. But, okay. So, speaking of the police, the police returned an escaped victim back to Dahmer's. In this, in the show they portrayed, they had that 14-year-old kid. Is the one that I'm asking about.
This is
for Lelouch V himself.
Okay. I'm going to say fact for that one.
Yeah, yes, it's pretty on brand.
And it has been documented that Otis East is not the biggest fan of kids himself, so that stands to reason. And it actually is true. It is true. The police did return the 14-year-old. Is somewhat pertinent, I guess. Law and Order sound. They did return the underage 14-year-old Laotian boy back to Dahmer's when he was clearly drugged and out of his mind. And there were, in fact, neighbors there protesting this, saying what's going on here. Yeah, it wasn't Glenda Cleveland that was one of them. She thought, but it was two other women that were really protesting it the most. And then Glenda Cleveland and the other ones were calling about it multiple times. So yes, that is in fact fact. Bonus question: the police officers that did this were known. They were in the show. They're called Gabrish and Bolsharak. Those are the actual names. Gabrish and Bolsharak were awarded the Police Officers of the Year.
That seems pretty on brand. I'd say yes.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
seems extremely on brand. That seems like the most on brand possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, that was fiction. I'm sorry. Fortunately, that was fiction. They were not awarded Police of the Year for this. They were suspended for 3 years without pay. However, after 3 years, they were of course reinstated, and they were given back pay for those 3 years they weren't there. So it's kind of like I don't know what the point of all this was, but yeah, that happened. Now.
Just waiting for people to forget.
Yes. So here's the bonus question then for Mr. Lush V of Chicago, Illinois. Was one of these police officers elected president of the police association?
You shit me.
Yes, I think he was.
You
I,
think he was?
I would not doubt that in the slightest.
You wouldn't? All right. And you were right. He was, in fact, Bolsharak was elected president of the police association in Milwaukee in, what was it, 2000? Let me double check. 2005. From 2005 to 2009. And in 2020, Twitter, the Milwaukee police released a kind of statement saying, "We know that we made some mistakes. The Milwaukee Police Department made some mistakes in the past, but we are a better department now." That was pretty much all they said. That's all they said. It was that scary.
Was that put out before or after George Floyd?
2020. So it probably was. It was associated with George Floyd plot. I don't know the exact date. Because Milwaukee has lots of.
Yeah.
Don't move there, Dev. Don't move there. But yeah, that was that was a little bit of fact or fiction, a little slightly different either or, obviously. But yeah, want to have some fun questions, or some not fun, but some questions.
That's crazy. But okay, getting into I guess our last topic for today, guys. It is anime season right now. One of our favorite seasons for anybody that is new to the show, that is a new watcher. We fuck with anime here heavily. And again, a lot of the new anime that are dropping, I guess the first was Spy Family, My Hero, and was there anything else that dropped on the first? I know the other half drops like the 10th.
There were some other side shows, but like the main ones were Spy Family and My Hero.
All right.
Yes.
Did you guys watch? So I know I watched the first episode of My Hero. I think, did you both watch the first episode?
Of course,
yes, most of the time. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I gotta watch that bit. I'm watching it dubbed and subbed. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm ready to see that. I want to hear it dubbed too. I'm loving it, man. I'm things feel like they're getting a little bit darker. Like I feel like they're gonna get to the point where they're gonna kill off some major hero. Because I don't know if the show gets that dark going forward, but that's the kind of vibe I'm getting right now. That they're like Mirako. I feel like they're about to have, because again, I think that at least the next big episode is gonna be her doing her thing, I guess. And it seems like they're gonna kill her off. I don't know how bad of a way. It's gonna be like a heroic, like a mortar type of deal, but that's what I'm getting, and I'm kind of excited for it, but I'm kind of not because I don't want to see her die. I'm like, damn, I fuck with her character, and they had to do some badass shit, but
yeah,
I don't know, bro. It's getting this stuff's about to get real, and I know some bodies are about to drop. I feel like. Yeah,
I'm right there with you. The Miracle is badass, man. I'm going back and forth as far as who like have more of a crush on, Miracle or She-Hulk, and it's. Probably Miracle. Yeah, and she's dope. She's awesome. I didn't see her until the last season when I first saw her.
That's when she first appeared.
She first appeared. Okay, maybe in the manga she may have showed up earlier. I wasn't sure. But she's fun. She's a cool character. I love the first episode as well, and it's fun, but funny because the last half of season 5 you don't see Deku or the heroes at all, really. And in this episode, you barely see Deku at all. He pops up like a cameo, really. But I love the idea that they're showing yet how robust and how full of a world this actually is. This isn't just the adventures of Deku and All Might. It's like, no, it's a full world of things. And so it builds up the idea that this is a literal, actual war. The scales are actually they're growing. The scope is growing. I know Otis has read the manga. He knows all things that unfold, so he might know the casualties that might happen. But I'm with you. I think it is. There's no reality in which we're making it out of this season without some bodies. We had bodies last season. So
no spoilers for the anime only watchers. Just a preface that me included.
That obviously I wasn't gonna go and spoil anything that wasn't in the anime yet.
Just checking.
But yeah, like this was probably the best season opener that the show has had. Period. Like since its inception, this is the best first episode of a season that they've had, and it's by a big margin. Usually, they spend their first episodes kind of rehashing things from a previous season or giving you a little bit of a filler or warm up. No, they got straight into it this season, and I'm really excited for this one. This is one I've been waiting for a while. And then, because going from here, the tone of My Hero like Charlie said, it does take a darker turn. and it gets real. And I've been waiting for this for a while. I cannot wait to see some of the future fights animated because I know they're going to do a good job with certain ones. But I am really excited for this season of My Hero.
Because this is a studio Bones, and Bones they kill it. They're like, are they at the top? Are they the top tier number one like animation studio right now, or are they like they got to be pretty close?
They're up there. I mean,
yeah, they got to be up there.
I think the studio's making the most money right now is Toei. I mean, between DBS and One Piece, I mean, those are beyond juggernauts. But when it comes to like the quality of Bones, they are definitely up there. They top tier every time.
Right on.
Because I feel like the animation got better. That hallway scene with Miracle, I was like, damn, this is fire. This is clean.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was clean because the thing about it was season 4. It was season 4, right, where the second half they didn't that much happen because they were making the third movie. This season, leading up to it, they had the break from the pandemic. Also, there wasn't a movie, so they can go full ham everything in this show this season. So yeah, it looks fantastic. It looks great. I mean, it looks also just seeing the scale of how many characters are on there on both sides. It's like this is bonkers. And also the as Otis mentioned, this having the best season premiere. I agree with that. It is. But it was not just a premiere; it was also the opening. The opening was fire. It worked for me too. It was amazing. I mean, the thing is, there's.
I like that shit.
I liked it too, but it just worked for me as far as like setting the tone. It wasn't over the top, goofy, happy, lollipops dancing in the sun with unicorns on your face. It was much more like these are characters doing their things. There's still colors, but it's not. This isn't necessarily the happiest of times. So I was feeling it, and I won't get into too many spoilers, but there was a pretty cool twist that the villain managed to pull off that I didn't see coming. Obviously, Otis did. He read the manga. Did you see the twist that I'm talking about with the villain?
Yeah, it seemed too easy. I think they were alluding to some kind of a twist, obviously, because it seemed like the plan that the heroes had was a little too well. Like things were going too well for it not to have some kind of a twist.
Fair.
I didn't know to what extent, but I knew something was going to be off.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew something would be off, but I didn't know what they had done.
Yeah. I'm kind of I love the development of other characters and other characters getting some light, but I don't want to stray too far away from Deku because I kind of want to see like not even him just doing shit. I want to see his perspective and his thoughts on the events going on, like to see how like if and when bodies start to drop, I want to see how that affects him being like a happy-go-lucky character that's the optimist that I gotta see that dive into maybe whether it be pessimism or whatever they decide to go the direction with him. I need to see how the world affects him.
Right.
So I just need to be checking. And if he's not gonna be the center stage for a lot of the season, I need to see him like reacting to things going on.
Right. And I think we ultimately will always in some level see these through his eyes. He's meant to be our avatar, our gateway through this into this world. But yeah, it's not going to just be around him. I mean, the episode in season 4, for example, when they made the whole raid on that, trying to save the little girl from Overhaul, there were plenty of characters doing plenty of fights, but when it came down to it, it was still Deku at center stage dealing with things the most. I feel it'll probably be the same way here. And it's fun as I was re-binging this series leading up to the premiere this weekend. I noticed how, what I thought before, but it actually happens where Deku doesn't cry again after season 3. After All Might pretty much passes the torch officially on to Deku, as far as there's no more All Might, it's just Deku now, as far as being the one carrying the one for all. He no longer cries. He has one big cry there as he watches All Might retire, more or less, and he stops crying. He pretty much mans up from there on out. He's not crying anymore. He cries when Night Eye dies. Spoiler alert. But other than that, he doesn't cry in fights. He doesn't cry over emotions. He's always tougher because he knows he has to be, essentially. So as the show's getting darker, in a sense, Deku is getting stronger too. He's not necessarily getting darker, but he's getting sterner.
Shit, I seen that one picture from the manga that leaked out with him. Like, I think it's like 3 seasons from now, but I'm like, that man look like a demon. But Deku look like a demon.
Yeah, I've seen some of those images too. So yeah, I think he's meant to be the beacon of light for us in a way, but he is going to be more mature. There's gonna be maturity with it too. So
I feel like I'm gonna get real Tokyo Ghoul vibes in a sense with him and Kaneki, like seeing them go like from extremely happy-go-lucky and
what did you call King Kaneki?
It's like Kaneki.
That's not his name.
I said, you know what I'm talking about. You know who the fuck I'm
What's
talking about.
what's that lead character's name in that show? I can't remember.
Ken Kanaki.
Is it
Kaneki. It's
Kaneki.
Keneti. Where's the ah? Where the fuck is the ah?
Kanaki.
Kaneki?
It's Kanaki.
Play the bill. Play the bill. All right, I guess that makes sense for some reason.
Get them all in. Yeah, but seeing that kind of descent into like pessimism near the end of this, like that's at least that's why I'm expecting the arc of Deku to go. I haven't read the manga at all, but it seems like
I've read them. I refuse to watch read the manga, but because I'd rather see it. But Tokyo Ghoul, that character goes through a horrific torture scene and after he's already had a demon in him for a long time, or a ghoul in him for a long time, and it basically causes his whole body. He just probably snaps. He probably breaks.
Yeah.
It would almost in some way there have to be a massive breaking point for Deku to have that kind of a turn as well. I don't know what that would be. Obviously, Otis does, but I don't know if Deku's going to face that kind of a breaking point. It seems like when big moments happen, it pushes Deku that much further into being a hero. When All Might went down and other things that have happened, he seems to go that much closer towards being a stronger hero, essentially. So I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying I'm curious what it would be to put Deku on the other side, essentially.
You know,
somebody gonna die.
The series of My Hero is essentially just watching Deku's journey to becoming the number one hero, and you get all the steps of it. They don't skip it. You get all of that. And
right.
This particular season is a big marker in that one. There's a lot coming. There's a lot of things coming this season.
Right on.
It's dope. When the show first started, I assumed it was going to be more like to the point, more cookie cutter in a sense of like he's going to be the number one hero because they show All Might. He's like, all right, this is the standard for the number one hero. So we see Deku getting there and Deku's aspiring to get there, but you can very much see it's not going to be through the same route or if he gets to that version of the number one hero at all.
No.
I mean, something that they've even show, like even through the seasons of the show, like the world that Deku is inheriting is a much darker world than what All Might had to deal with when he was, in his prime. Yeah. Like, yes, All for One did a lot of horrible things, during that time period, but his influence has kind of increased since then, and now there's threats from multiple angles instead of just, they're just being the super villain, the typical super villains that are gonna be out there breaking buildings and fighting fights. There's a actual methodology to what they're trying to accomplish.
Even the supporting cast, like the supporting cast is all like damaged, like with Todoroki and Bakugo, they're all just like everyone's damaged a lot. That's the one thing I'm seeing, like with the heroes, like they have to just put that behind them and put on a brave face, and they have so much trauma and shit hitting them from all angles, along with the villains.
Right, and I agree with what both of y'all saying, especially Otis said as far as how in the vacuum of All Might going down, essentially it created. They show in the series how it creates the darkness rises that much stronger as well. And obviously the heroes are trying to fill the void as best they can, but there's a gap between the heroes and the villains, and also the All Might's presence. All Might literally by simply being around made crime lower. It was like it was massively lower because of him, and it spiked rapidly after he was gone. So there's by the nature of that alone, things have gotten darker. And it is that much to think about the fact that all the hard work that All Might put into things during his era is almost reversed immediately because of by him not being around is just it's kind of heartbreaking. But I dig it.
All right,
I dig it.
But sure, that's all. Do you have any other thoughts on this first episode, guys?
No. I'm
Not
just
really.
I can't wait for next episode and the next one. The next one.
And so let me ask you this real quick though, because we're more or less in a binging or binging culture, and the way these are now is you can't binge anime as they come out during a season. Do you like the idea of having to wait between weeks for an episode, or would you rather they all be out now just to binge?
Go ahead, Oda. I'll let you go first.
I was just saying, like, I've already been programmed to watch anime weekly for so long that, I mean, having it another way would be kind of weird almost. I feel like it it lowers the impact of it. Like before, I was all about, like, oh yeah, put the show out all at once because you get to watch it all at once. But you also talk about it for a shorter period of time when it's all just dumped out like that. I like the fact that they come out weekly. I've definitely come accustomed to it.
Yeah, weekly releases are more of an event, like a month long, however long the show lasts event, than an actual like the binging. I do. Is advantageous to an extent for the consumer because you get to watch it all in your own time and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm thinking something like Stranger Things, where it's like not all at one time. People talked about Stranger Things for like the entire summer and even like leading up into some of the like fall. It was dope. So especially with anime and like you saw, big like in I think the steam on Attack on Titan had died a lot, but like in that final season, that first drop, everybody was talking about it week to week. Like it was a big event and thing. At least for me, I'll see it a lot more so in the group, the Blurred Approved Entertainment group chat, not the group chat, but just the general. Like you'll see like a lot of the posts will be related to that whatever show is hot that's trending for a while. Like you'll see memes for like there are so many Stranger Things memes that went for that entire summer in that group. To where I was kind of like tired. I'm like, bro, okay, we get it. It's good. We know it's good.
Yeah.
It's like we got 15 Stranger Things memes today alone. Right. Granted, I was participating in that, but yeah,
it was. You're right. I feel like the Stranger Things may have been a bit of an exception to the rule where it had staying power to be talked about for a whole summer, more or less. Typically, though, things will be hot if everything's dropped at once. It'll be hot for a week or two, and then kind of no one talks about it anymore.
However, but they got that in two parts, though. That was like it wasn't week to week.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it wasn't at once. Yeah, they still managed to last the entire. People talking about still now. But like, typically, shows that they're dropped all at once. It's very kind of flash in the pan. They're gone. The Boys obviously releases things once an episode a week, and it was talked about for the whole those 2-3 months that it was out as well. This, I'm not sure how long the season actually is, but I'm sure it'll be. I think it's like 20 episodes or so for anime. But I like the idea of having semi-appointment television with this, where I have something to look forward to, be excited about every Saturday. I get a bowl of cereal, throw on some PJs like I did when I was a kid, and watch this. So yeah, I like
House of Dragons, bro. That's been like people talking about that. People, you know how many people I've met that I know in my friend group that are like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch it. I don't think I'm gonna like it, and then they'll come to me like, bro, you see that new season, a new episode? I'm like, bro, you said you didn't like that shit. What are you talking about? Oh well, I'm like, okay, bro.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, and that's kind of how old school television was that some people wouldn't have caught on right away, but then because as the show continues to air, they grow more of a following. It's kind of how I guess House of Dragons is doing it now. So yeah, there are some advantages to definitely having where you dole out your episodes weekly as opposed to doing a binge drop.
All right. Well, guys, moving on to church announcements. Hear ye, hear ye.
One more show.
One more show.
Yeah, Spy Family. That also dropped its first episode this week. And this is one that I'm actually not familiar with the manga with. So
this one I know more about than Otis. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I'll let y'all go ahead and shoot it because I haven't seen it yet.
You didn't see this one? Oh, okay.
I haven't seen it yet. So we'll go ahead. What are your thoughts on it?
It was great.
I love it. It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
I mean, this is a show that even when you're giving quote unquote filler stuff, like it always finds a way to deliver on some note. I mean, I just this show can almost do no wrong at this point. Like whether it's light levity moments or heavy, gravity moments, they executed well, and this is more exciting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, they do a mix of the, like you said, it's a light or heavy. They do a mix of the two really well, oftentimes too. There's a part in this episode, you'll see it later on, but it's not too much of a spoiler, where the young, cute little girl is in a very dark situation, and she's still being cute and funny at the same time. And this is obviously it's called Spy Family. This season it kind of expands the family by, of course, I'm getting a family pet, and of course, in a family where one of them, the mom is an assassin. The dad is a world-class spy. The daughter is a telepath. It all makes sense, of course. The dog or the pet would literally be a psychic, could see the future. So it's just I just love all these
dog things. Is crazy.
Clairvoyant dog.
So it's just so it's I love it. It's just so much. It never stops being fun. And I will say this much: for those who are hardcore dub enthusiasts, I get it, but the sub is. I tried watching the dub a little bit. It's just the little girl is so much funnier. She's so much funnier in sub. It really is.
I like it.
I haven't even attempted to watch this in dub.
Dub's fire to me. I've only watched it in dub.
It's
so far.
fine. It's perfectly fine. She's definitely funnier sub than she is a dub. Yeah. All right.
But again, a great episode. My favorite moment was your showing up and just kicking someone so hard that they rebounded off of concrete, brick, and then concrete again. Like
it was like
that shit had to hurt, bro. Oh my god!
It also wasn't just that. It was also as she was leaping through the air, the evil, like almost like an evil cobra look she had as her silhouette was jumping. And that kick was. I was trying to put together. I read at a time an actual compilation of it, either or. Which kick was better? That kick that Goku does against Cell, where he's doing the spinning lariat thing during the Cell games, or the kick that Yor has, where she hits the dude so hard he pinballs through an alley for like an hour.
Man, like, oh my god! Like,
it was perfect.
I don't know if Goku's ever kicked anybody that hard. Where they bounced twice?
No, he has.
No, it wasn't twice. Like it was like a funnel effect. Like he flew off of solid objects that were not. You're not supposed to bounce off of brick. Okay, you're not supposed to bounce off of asphalt or concrete. And he said, "Yep."
It was super. It was super dark because it's a child getting ready to be essentially murdered by criminals, hardcore criminals with a razor, with a knife, switchblade or something like that. And it's like extremely dark. And then she hits him with all kinds of oomph. And the levity, again, it's like the levity comes in. I busted out laughing hard. I'm hard laughing when I saw it. I couldn't help it because it was like, yeah, it's perfect, but it works. It works. But I love how protective she is of like anytime anyone comes anywhere near her baby, she goes ham and a half. So
that's her child for sure. That is her child.
That's her child.
Any more shows that we're missing out on before we close out?
Maybe some other ones.
None worth mentioning. Like like I said, there are a couple other new titles. But until they have a good episode, I'll keep those on the back burner.
Shade. Throw that shade with both hands.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Makes sense. It does. I don't know why, but it does. It makes sense.
Brought to you by Wesley Snipes, guys.
He's our official sponsor. He's our official sponsor. Yeah.
Hey, we don't need him. No, our taxes will be fucked.
I was going to say he pays us in tax refunds, but yeah, okay.
Oh god. So yeah, church announcements, guys. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch wouldn't work, so you are watching on YouTube. If you guys would take a second to go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We are the Then and Out podcast. We talk about nerd stuff, reviews, interviews, all that kind of good stuff. We're on the road to 1,000 subs, so we'd appreciate it if you guys would give us that subscription. And just, if you like this, you can check out our other stuff. We have video essays. We have interviews with some amazing co-hosts but just guests I never thought I'd be able to speak to in my life. I've been blessed to speak to. And it's dope shit in general. So thank you guys for tuning in. We do have an interview
with the co-host. We do have an interview with you, actually.
Oh yeah, we gotta finish those other two up.
Yeah, we do.
Point.
No, I don't need one. I'm good.
You need one the most, probably. At this point,
I have enough on other channels. I'm good. I'm fine.
Bro, we gonna write a whole testament in the Bible with your ass. We need that.
Revelations and he's on the pale horse. No.
But yeah, so again, thank you guys for your support, and we hope for your continued support, and we will see you guys next time.
See, I made a whole episode without saying anything bad about Warner Brothers. I feel proud.
Proud of you.